Today, we confront the silent engine of all human achievement and its equally powerful shadow, inaction. We are exploring the deep psychology of self-motivation, not the fleeting inspiration of a motivational quote, but the fundamental architecture of human drive. In the minutes that follow, we will dismantle the machine of your own mind to understand why you do what you do, and more importantly, why you don't do what you know you should.
We will journey into the neurochemical pathways of your brain to understand the true role of dopamine, a molecule not of pleasure, but of relentless pursuit. We will expose the invisible cognitive biases that act as saboteurs within your own thinking, silently steering you towards procrastination. And we will resurrect the timeless, battle-hardened wisdom of the Stoics, men like Marcus Aurelius, who governed an empire not with fleeting feelings, but with an indestructible internal framework. This is your roadmap to understanding the operating system of your will. The promise is this: if you click away, you will continue to be a passenger to your moods, a victim of inspiration's fickle nature. But if you stay, if you commit your attention to this exploration, you will walk away with the keys to the control room. You will learn not to find motivation, but to architect it from the ground up.
That feeling of inertia, that magnetic pull of the familiar and the comfortable when you know you should be striving, is one of the most universal and frustrating human experiences. It's the gap between knowing your potential and actualizing it. We tell ourselves we lack willpower, that we are lazy, that something is inherently broken within us. But this self-flagellation is built on a false premise. Motivation is not a character trait you are born with or without. It is a complex interplay of biology, psychology, and philosophy. To master it is to master the very art of living a deliberate life. Our first step in this journey is to dismantle the greatest deception in personal development, the myth of extrinsic rewards. From a young age, we are conditioned to operate on a system of external inputs.
Good grades earn you praise, completing chores earns an allowance, and professional success earns you a salary and a title. This is the world of extrinsic motivation, motivation that comes from the outside. It is the carrot and the stick, and while it can be effective for simple, repetitive tasks, it is a catastrophic failure when it comes to long-term, complex, and meaningful pursuits. Why? Because it outsources your sense of purpose.
The moment the external reward is removed, or the moment the punishment is no longer a threat, the motivation evaporates. It's a fragile, transactional relationship with your own goals. Now, contrast this with its powerful counterpart, intrinsic motivation. This is the drive that comes from within. It is the joy of the process itself, the satisfaction of improving a skill, the deep resonance of acting in alignment with your values.
Psychologists Edward Deci and Richard Ryan, in their groundbreaking self-determination theory, identified 3 core psychological needs that fuel intrinsic motivation: autonomy, the need to feel in control of your own life and decisions; competence, the need to feel effective and master challenges; and relatedness, the need to feel connected to others. When these needs are met, motivation becomes self-sustaining.
It is no longer a resource you consume, but a wellspring you can draw from indefinitely. Think of the artist who paints for hours, losing all track of time, not for the sale, but for the act of creation itself. Think of the programmer who debugs code through the night, driven by the challenge of solving the puzzle. This is the state of flow you hear about, and it is accessible only through intrinsic drivers. Let's make this tangible with a historical case study that illustrates this dichotomy perfectly. Consider the Wright brothers, Orville and Wilbur. They were bicycle mechanics from Ohio with no formal college education, no government funding, and no corporate backing. Their primary competitor, Samuel Langley, was a distinguished professor at the Smithsonian Institution. He had a massive government grant, a team of experts, and the full attention of the press.
Langley was driven by extrinsic factors, fame, legacy, and federal funding. The Wright brothers were driven by an intrinsic passion, a deep-seated belief that they could solve the problem of human flight. They were driven by autonomy. They controlled their entire project. They were driven by competence. Each failed experiment was a lesson, a step toward mastery. And they were driven by relatedness, a powerful bond of brotherhood focused on a single dream.
While Langley's team worked from 9 to 5, the Wright brothers toiled from dawn till dusk, because their work was not a job, it was a calling. When Langley's final, expensive experiment failed spectacularly, he simply quit. The external motivators were gone. The Wright brothers, however, crashed numerous times, but each failure fueled their resolve, because their motivation was internal. On December 17, 1903, driven by nothing more than their own will and intellect, they achieved what all the
money and prestige in the world could not. This story is the ultimate proof. Extrinsic motivation builds a house of cards, while intrinsic motivation builds a fortress of stone. So how do you, in your own life, begin to shift from the fragile extrinsic to the resilient intrinsic? It begins with a process of honest self-interrogation. First, conduct an autonomy audit. Look at your primary goals. Ask yourself, who chose this goal for me?
Is it a goal you inherited from your parents, from society, or from a desire to impress others? Or does it spring from a genuine personal curiosity or value? You must reclaim your goals as your own. If a goal is not truly yours, you will never find the internal energy to see it through the inevitable hardship. Second, adopt a mastery mindset. Reframe your tasks. Instead of seeing a workout as a painful chore to get a certain body, see it as a practice session to master the form of a deadlift to improve your cardiovascular capacity by 1%. Instead of seeing a work project as a means to a paycheck, see it as an opportunity to become a better communicator, a more strategic thinker. Focus on the process of improvement, not the destination of success. The satisfaction derived from progress is a potent intrinsic reward. Finally, write a purpose statement. This isn't a corporate mission statement. It's a single, clear sentence that defines why you are on this path.
It should be an active, service-oriented statement. Not, I want to be rich, but I want to build things that solve problems for people. This statement becomes your North Star, the internal compass that guides you when external rewards are nowhere to be found. Now, let's go deeper, from the psychological to the biological. We need to talk about a single molecule that is widely misunderstood, yet governs nearly all of our seeking behavior: dopamine.
Popular culture has branded dopamine as the pleasure molecule. This is dangerously inaccurate. Dopamine is the motivation molecule. It is not released when you achieve a reward. It is released in anticipation of a potential reward. It is the chemical that drives you to get up off the couch, to check your phone, to pursue a goal. It is the molecule of more. Without it, you would have no desire to do anything. In laboratory experiments, when scientists block the dopamine receptors in rats, the animals become so unmotivated they won't even move to get food. They will starve to death even when food is placed just inches away. They still enjoy eating it if it's placed in their mouths, but they have lost the drive to seek it out. This, in a less extreme form, is what many of us are experiencing in the modern world. Our environment has been expertly engineered to hijack our dopamine system. Social media notifications, hyper-palatable junk food, streaming services with endless content, online shopping, these all provide massive, unpredictable spikes of dopamine for minimal effort. Your brain, in its ancient wisdom, learns a simple equation. Why would I expend immense effort for a large, delayed reward, like building a business or getting in shape, when I can get a small, immediate reward right now for almost no effort? Your brain isn't lazy, it's efficient.
It's following the path of least resistance to a chemical reward. Over time, this constant overstimulation desensitizes your dopamine receptors. It takes more and more stimulus to get the same level of motivation. This is why you feel apathetic, why you procrastinate, why even things you used to enjoy now feel dull. You have effectively exhausted your brain's capacity for drive. The ancient Stoics, without any knowledge of neuroscience, understood this principle with profound clarity.
The Roman philosopher Seneca, one of the wealthiest men in the empire, constantly wrote about the dangers of luxury and excessive pleasure. In his letters to Lucilius, he advised, "Set aside a certain number of days, during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, 'Is this the condition that I feared?'" This wasn't about self-punishment. It was a deliberate practice of resetting his baseline.
He was, in modern terms, performing a dopamine fast. He was intentionally depriving himself of easy comforts to resensitize his system to the simple joys and to prove to himself that he could endure hardship. He was training his mind to not be dependent on external comforts for its sense of well-being and drive. So, how can we apply this ancient wisdom in our modern, overstimulated world? The first step is a practical, controlled dopamine detox. This doesn't have to be extreme.
Start with 1 day a week. On this day, you eliminate all your high dopamine, low effort activities. No social media, no YouTube, no video games, no junk food, no mindless internet browsing. Fill your day with difficult, high effort activities. A long walk in nature, reading a challenging book, exercising, meditating, writing, having a deep conversation with a friend. The first few hours will be excruciatingly boring. You will feel agitated and restless. This is your brain in withdrawal.
But as the day goes on, you will notice something remarkable. The world will start to seem more vibrant. The simple act of reading will feel engaging. The satisfaction of completing a difficult task will feel profoundly rewarding. You are recalibrating your brain's reward system. The second and more sustainable step is to learn to attach dopamine to the effort itself. You must consciously override your brain's desire for the outcome and learn to love the process.
When you're at the gym, don't focus on the physique you want in 6 months. Focus on the feeling of the muscle contracting right now. Feel the strain, the burn, and tell yourself, this is the feeling of getting stronger. When you're working on a difficult project, don't fantasize about the moment it's finished. Focus on the sensation of deep concentration, the small victory of solving one tiny piece of the puzzle.
By consciously acknowledging and finding satisfaction in the friction and the struggle, you are teaching your dopamine system to release its reward not for the finish line, but for the act of running the race. This is the secret to making hard work feel good, and it is the key to sustainable, long-term motivation. Even with a perfectly calibrated reward system and intrinsically chosen goals, we still face another formidable opponent, our own flawed thinking.
Our minds are riddled with cognitive biases, mental shortcuts that, while useful for quick decisions, often sabotage our most important long-term goals. To build true self-motivation, we must become warriors of the mind, identifying and dismantling these internal saboteurs. Let's focus on 3 of the most pernicious culprits. The first is present bias. This is our brain's natural tendency to overvalue immediate rewards at the expense of long-term ones.
It's why you choose the pleasure of hitting the snooze button now over the long-term benefit of starting your day on time. It's the "I'll start my diet tomorrow" phenomenon. This bias is powerfully demonstrated in the famous Stanford marshmallow experiment, where children were offered 1 marshmallow immediately or 2 if they could wait for 15 minutes. The children who could delay gratification went on to have better life outcomes.
They had, in essence, learned to overcome their own present bias. To combat this, you need to make your future rewards feel more present and your present temptations more costly. One technique is temptation bundling, a concept from behavioral economist Catherine Milkman. You pair an activity you enjoy, a want, with an activity you procrastinate on, a should. For example, you only allow yourself to listen to your favorite podcast while you are at the gym.
Or you only get to enjoy your fancy coffee while you process your morning emails. This bundles the immediate gratification of the want with the long-term benefit of the should. Another powerful tool is a commitment device. This is a choice you make in the present that locks you into a better behavior in the future. It could be as simple as setting out your workout clothes the night before, or as serious as giving a friend a large sum of money to hold, which they will donate to a political
Because you despise if you fail to meet your goal. You are making it more painful to quit than to continue.
Next, we have the tyranny of perfectionism. This often masquerades as a noble pursuit of high standards, but it is actually a deep-seated fear of failure and judgment. The perfectionist thinks in all or nothing terms. If I can't write the perfect first draft, I won't write at all. If I miss one day at the gym, my entire fitness plan is ruined.
This creates immense pressure and leads to chronic procrastination because starting anything feels too daunting. The historical record is filled with cautionary tales. Leonardo da Vinci, one of history's greatest geniuses, was also a legendary procrastinator, leaving masterpieces like the Adoration of the Magi unfinished for decades because his standards were impossibly high. He was paralyzed by his own genius.
Contrast this with an artist like Picasso, who produced over 50,000 works of art. He was not afraid to be messy, to experiment, to create something that wasn't a masterpiece. His mantra was action over perfection. To break free from perfectionism, you must embrace the mantra, done is better than perfect. Give yourself permission to produce a C- first draft. The goal is simply to get the ball rolling.
A powerful tool for this is the 2-minute rule, popularized by author James Clear. Whatever task you are avoiding, commit to doing it for just 2 minutes. Want to read more? Just read 1 page. Want to get fit? Just put on your running shoes and walk out the door. The 2-minute start is so small that it's impossible to say no to. This overcomes the initial inertia, and more often than not, once you start, you find the momentum to continue.
It bypasses the perfectionist's need for an ideal starting condition and focuses solely on the act of beginning. Finally, we must contend with the Zeigarnik effect, a psychological phenomenon where uncompleted or interrupted tasks dominate our thoughts more than completed ones. This was first observed by psychologist Bluma Zeigarnik, who noticed that waiters in a restaurant had perfect recall of unpaid orders, but would immediately forget the orders once the bill was paid.
In our modern lives, this manifests as a constant low-grade mental anxiety from our endless to-do lists, our dozens of open browser tabs, and the projects we've started but never finished. This mental clutter drains our cognitive resources and makes it difficult to focus, killing our motivation for deep, meaningful work. Your brain keeps sending you push notifications. Don't forget about that email. What about that report? You still need to call your mother.
To silence this mental noise, you must have a trusted system for capturing and organizing your commitments. This is the core idea behind David Allen's Getting Things Done methodology. You need to get every single open loop out of your head and into an external system, whether it's a notebook, a to-do list app, or your calendar. The act of simply writing down a task and scheduling a time to do it appeases the brain's nagging reminders. It tells your subconscious, this is handled.
You don't need to worry about it right now. This frees up immense mental bandwidth, allowing you to pour all of your focus and motivational energy into the single task at hand, rather than spreading it thinly across dozens of anxieties. We have journeyed through the psychological, the biological, and the cognitive. Now we arrive at the ultimate foundation, the bedrock upon which an unshakable motivational system is built, the Stoic Forge.
Stoicism is perhaps the most misunderstood philosophy in history. It is not about suppressing emotion or being a joyless robot. It is a practical, powerful operating system for thriving in a world of uncertainty. The core of Stoic motivation is this: it is not about waiting for the right feeling to act. It is about acting rightly, regardless of how you feel. It is the ultimate separation of action from emotion. Let us go to the source.
Imagine Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the world, waking before dawn. He is not in a warm palace in Rome, but in a cold, damp tent on the northern frontier near the Danube River, leading a brutal military campaign. He is old, he is sick, and he is surrounded by war and death. And in his private journal, which we now know as Meditations, he writes himself this note: "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being."
What do I have to complain of if I'm going to do what I was born for, the things I was brought into the world to do? Or is this what I was created for? To huddle under the blankets and stay warm? This is not a man looking for a feeling of motivation. This is a man reminding himself of his duty, of his purpose. He is manufacturing his own reason to act, independent of his physical comfort or emotional state. He is choosing his character over his comfort.
This principle is rooted in what the slave-turned-philosopher Epictetus called the dichotomy of control. He argued that in life there are things we can control and things we cannot. We cannot control the weather, the economy, what other people think of us, or even our own feelings, which often arise unbidden. The only thing we truly control is our own will, our choices, our judgments, and our actions.
The Stoic finds motivation by focusing every ounce of their energy on this small circle of control and completely ignoring everything outside of it. You don't feel like going to the gym? Your feelings are outside your control, but the physical act of putting on your shoes and walking to the gym is within your control, so you do that. You don't feel confident enough to speak up in a meeting? Your feeling of confidence is outside your control.
But the act of unmuting your microphone and speaking the words is within it. This is the ultimate liberation. It frees you from the tyranny of your own moods. Action is no longer a negotiation with your feelings. It is a simple choice. How do we forge this mindset in our daily lives? The Stoics left us a curriculum of mental exercises, a workout for the soul. The first is Premeditatio Malorum, the premeditation of evils. Every morning, take a moment to visualize your day going wrong.
Imagine your project getting rejected. You get stuck in traffic. A colleague is rude to you. The goal is not to be a pessimist. The goal is to rehearse adversity so that when it inevitably strikes, you are not surprised or emotionally derailed. You have already considered it. This builds immense psychological resilience. The second exercise is the view from above. When you feel overwhelmed by a problem, practice this visualization.
Imagine yourself floating up out of your body, looking down at your room, then your city, then the country, then the earth as a small blue marble in the vastness of space. From this cosmic perspective, how significant is the problem that is causing you so much stress? It shrinks to its proper size, and you can approach it with calm and logic rather than panic. But the most powerful Stoic motivator of all is the practice of Memento Mori. Remember, you will die.
The Stoics did not see this as morbid. They saw it as the ultimate source of meaning and urgency. Steve Jobs, in his famous Stanford commencement address, said, "Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices in life." The knowledge that your time is finite is the ultimate cure for procrastination. It cuts through the trivialities, the fears, and the excuses. There is no time to waste on things that do not matter.
There is no time to delay the work you were put here to do. This is not a threat, but an invitation to live fully, to act boldly, and to stop waiting for a feeling of motivation that may never come. So we find ourselves at the end of this exploration. We have seen that true motivation is not found in external rewards, but cultivated from an internal sense of autonomy, mastery, and purpose.
We have learned that our brain's reward system can be hijacked by cheap pleasures, and that we must consciously reclaim it by embracing effort and disconnecting from instant gratification. We have identified the cognitive biases that act as our invisible enemies and learned the strategies to outwit them. And finally, we have stood in the Stoic forge, learning to build an indestructible will that is independent of our fleeting emotions, grounded in duty, and fueled by the finite nature of our lives.
Thus, what if you were to truly integrate these principles? What if, tomorrow morning when you wake up, you don't ask yourself, "Do I feel motivated?" but instead ask, "What is my duty?" What if you chose to see every task not as a chore, but as an opportunity to practice your craft? What if you learned to find joy in the friction of effort itself? This is not a fantasy.
It is a choice. Self-motivation is not a mystery to be solved.
It is a discipline to be practiced, day after day, choice after choice, until the act of doing what you must becomes as natural and as necessary as breathing. If this exploration resonated with you, subscribe for more journeys into the architecture of the mind. Your support fuels this mission. Now, I leave you at this. What is the one action you have been delaying that your future self will thank you for starting today?